Welcome, everybody. All right, so I'm Chris Russell. I'm your host and moderator for today. Leah Daniels, who normally is here as well, is away on vacation in Costa Rica on the beach somewhere, I hope. Our topic today is messaging best practices for the candidate experience because look, communication is really where the candidate experience lives and dies. So I think it's an important topic we should talk about. Our guests today are a couple of veterans in the talent acquisition space. First up, Kerry Noone. She runs employer brand at Ford Motor Company. Hey, Kerry.
Nice to be here. Thanks for
Hey,
having me.
absolutely. And we got Geoff Webb from Organon in Toronto, Canada. They're a global pharma company as well. So, hey, Geoff, good to see you.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Excellent. And as always, we're joined by our CEO, Alex Murphy from JobSync.
Chris, thanks.
All right, just a reminder, we'll post a replay of the webinar to YouTube tomorrow, and we'll email everyone a link in the replay in the coming days as well. Sorry about last month. We forgot to hit the record button, so that was a mistake on our part. All right, here. So let's kick things off, guys, by having Kerry and Geoff kind of give us their philosophies on messaging candidates here in terms of how they handle things at Ford and or Organon, and talk about your just the aspect of that, the frequency, how much thought goes into the wording of these messages, and let's start there. Who wants to go first?
Oh, heck. Okay, so Carrie's not jumping in, so
All right.
I'll go first. So Organon is probably we're a smaller organized. Well, we're not smaller. We're a large organization. We're a global organization, but we're a very young organization. And so we may have a slightly different philosophy than some of the more staid and older organizations, right? Because a lot of the times when we message with candidates, we are introducing ourselves as much as, trying to track them. So I guess in terms of, overall messaging, my philosophy is that it's better to message fewer people and have it be more impactful than to spam hundreds of people and have absolutely no one reply to you. Having said that, I read an interesting article on LinkedIn recently where, somebody brought up the fact that sometimes making something hyper contextual can also be viewed as being performative. So I think sometimes we have to walk the line between being seen as we're just adding in a few keywords about your profile and the fact that you like you know dogs, and as opposed to really understanding or trying to understand the person's motivators and intrinsic motivators.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I heard the word dogs, and I'm a huge dog lover. And if you hear my
Me
dog in the
too.
background, her name is Coco, and she might say hi. I always have my cursor hovered over the mute button just in case. But so I think it's very interesting. I've been at Ford for almost a year. It'll be a year in May. And one of the first projects I started on is an EVP refresh. So along with the EVP refresh, we went from 5 pillars to 3 pillars and more concise and more global ready because we are a global team. Is comes an audit. So where are we sending automated messages? What do the automated messages say? Are there any pain points in the automated messages? And I think the answer to that is always a yes. And so how do we use our words appropriately to lessen some of those pain points? And then, of course, the technology behind the messages themselves. So we have a couple of different systems that actually send out messages. We do automated earlier in the stage, and then as we get closer to maybe, let's say, an interview or hire, of course, we get more personal, and those automated messages are not part of our strategy.
Yeah. Roughly how many automated messages do you have, Carrie? Do you know that number?
I don't, but I am just so I've signed up for pretty much everything. So I'm discovering new ones along the different phases. I was pleasantly surprised to see that we did have one of the automated messages that we had at CVS that worked really well was you started the application, but you didn't finish it. So I was pleasantly surprised that we have that, but the message could be better. And we don't have any branding on it, so there's no logo or anything incorporated into it. So
Yeah.
lots to audit and fix and improve.
How about you, Geoff? You know how many you have?
Not a lot. To be honest with you, most of ours came, so we spun off from MSD or Merck. A lot of ours came across during the spin-off, and we spent the last 4 years kind of digging into our various different systems with more of a philosophy towards that white glove treatment versus automating messages at scale, right? So most of our automated messages at Spin were from Workday. They weren't branded very nicely. Workday's not a great platform for sending out nice sort of hyper branded emails with attachments or video or anything like that. So we really actually quickly took out those automations in preference of having one-to-one interactions where we potentially could have interactions at scale. Again, we're a smaller organization, and probably we are not a small organization, we are a younger organization. And so, it just made more sense to kind of have that more white glove treatment. We don't get the candidate volumes that a lot of other organizations get. So it's a little bit easier to reach out one-to-one at scale right now than it would be if it was, I don't know, Pfizer, right?
Yeah.
One of our competitors.
The branding aspect seems to be like the biggest or the easiest win for a lot of companies here because they just fail to take advantage of that, right? I think sometimes too, the ATS may not have the ability to brand the email, so depending on what they're using, but that's probably an easy win for most companies, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah. I definitely agree. And we have Oracle as our ATS, and there's a I don't know if it's a product update, but it's something that we had not used taken advantage of. I mentioned the lack of branding, and so that is a product update or product feature that we are implementing, which, from my perspective, you can say a lot with the branding part of it around the actual message itself.
Yep. Here's a question for you both. How does the quality of messaging directly impact a company's ghosting rate and sort of overall acceptance rate? What do you guys want to say about that?
I think I mean, definitely it helps, right? So I think when we send out messages that are more one-to-one, and again are customized messages around not just, hi, my name's Geoff Webb and I have a job, we definitely see the response rates go up. I think the last time I checked, our team sits at around a 40 to 60% response rate, which is very good. But again, I don't have a lot of historical data to say that that improved. It's always kind of sat at that in that zone.
Mhm.
But I do attribute that a lot to making sure that when we do send a message to somebody, it's from one human being to another human being, and it's not just like a generic template that we put into our system and somebody activates, right?
Yeah.
And we are along with a lot of other things that we're improving. The CRM strategy is something for 2026. And so we look at it, the sourcing team sits under the acquisition attraction team, my team. And so we're looking at it the one-to-one, as Jeff was just saying, the one to many. And then something that we saw at CVS as a great success was we basically flipped our funnel. So we had so many people within our own funnel. So how do we convert the people who are in there who have applied to applicants? And the timing was great. It was 2020, and we were already being asked to cut money, budget, and then COVID hit. So not, I guess that's not a great timing, but we had a hiring surge where some companies had furloughs, and we had to make the most of the people in our database. So we did like a rediscovery at the beginning of the year, which set the tone. We had, just by asking people to update their information within our system, we saw a surge of like 24,000 um, people who uploaded their resume that we didn't have information. So that message alone helped us to improve our database. And then that helped us to refine that message down the line. So not just the all database email, which we did send and we had great success with, but then also more targeted healthcare professionals in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, for example, which
Mhm.
where Rhode Island or where CVS is located. So I'm looking at that adoption and CRM strategy for Forward and partnering with our sourcing team, partnering with our recruiters to really improve and track our conversion rates.
I
Well,
think I think sorry, Chris, but I think
no, go ahead.
Carrie makes a really good point there around kind of the next frontier for employer branding teams and sourcing teams when especially when they're together is kind of how do we take our existing database as she just talked about and then nurture that database, right? That's kind of in my mind, it's the next frontier of employer branding, right? How do you consistently tell a story to that candidate that keeps them engaged enough with your brand that when you do have that job, they're going to say, you know what, you've told me so much about your organization and what a great place to work you are that I need to apply. I need to come and work for you.
hmm And it also helps with that top of the funnel. So we're not at CVS, we were paying for a lot at the top of the funnel because we had such hiring, high volume hiring, that we were paying for people over and over again to get into the top of the funnel and just sit within our funnel. I know that Nicole Fritz over there has been doing a ton of really great branding, so I know that that has evolved since 2020, 2021-ish. And I'm just hoping to adopt some of that success. One other thing that we at CVS we asked people within our database, our all database emails and our targeted emails, what do you want to hear from? Overwhelmingly, surprisingly, they still wanted jobs. So you have the whole job alert theory where they're getting job alerts and sometimes they're imagined, sometimes they're not. But in these newsletter type or more personalized communication. So we would share jobs, we would have hot jobs, we would say, don't forget to update your information. You know, if you've worked somewhere else for 6 months, your capabilities are probably different from what they were 6 months ago. But then also, here's a story that might be targeted that you'll be interested in. So it's not just the hot jobs, it's what else are we doing and how are we supporting the people in that particular profession.
Hmm. Carrie, did you guys do a lot of updating the candidates as far as just the status of their application goes? Did you have to
Um,
talk about that as well?
Yeah, so that was definitely part of our internal processes, and it is at Ford too. We have ongoing conversations about making sure that people are progressing, so that they are getting the right communications. A great example is if someone is dispositioned out of a job, maybe they interviewed for it and they didn't get the job. Let's try not to send them a job alert that says, "Hey, you'd be a great fit for this job."
I bet that happens quite a bit in most organizations, would be my guess.
It is, and I think there's education on our team's side too. It's not to say that's an automation that we need to continually work on and improve. It's not employer branding, sending that job alert to that person. We need to figure out, we need to coordinate together and work together to make sure that they don't get those automated messages.
Do you
Yeah.
distinguish between silver medalists, like people that maybe got to the end and so they're out, but like they'd be a really great fit for something else versus people that are call it disqualified? Are you thinking about differentiating between those groups?
It is definitely on the plan. With our sourcing team to create a unique talent community for silver medalists or however we want to describe them. At CVS, it was definitely in the works as well. So we want to make sure that not only silver medalists, if that's what we're calling them, I guess it's appropriate with the Olympics going on right now, but then also employee referrals. So we want to as much as possible, as Jeff referenced, more of that white glove service. If our someone on our team is taking the time to refer someone, let's not treat them like the everyone else who comes in the top of the funnel. Let's give them a little bit more
How hard is it
customized,
to
personalized.
how hard is it to identify them though and put that in a database somewhere? Are the ATSs set up to, categorize someone as a silver medalist?
Not
Silver
ours.
medalist. That's a good
Not-
question. I don't know. That's a good question
Probably
how
not.
it
Yeah.
is. I believe it is.
I have
Um,
I've worked with Avature and we do categorize as silver medalists in the ATS.
That's good to know. Okay.
We actually created a new disposition code that we called qualified but not considered. And that certainly helps a lot, right? So basically what it's saying is that this person was minimum, they met the qualifications of the job. We just didn't get to them, and that could be because of timing. It could be because of changes in circumstances around the job. So maybe the job went from one band level to another band level. They were still qualified, but we just didn't consider them, and that kind of feeds into the talent pools, right? So that when you're dispositioned at Organon, you're really dispositioned. You were not qualified for the job, or we weren't interested in it, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, Kate Davies says in the chat that you can use tags sometimes in the ATS to identify those people, those folks as well. Let's talk about channels, guys. SMS versus email. What are you guys doing with SMS, if anything? What's your strategy there? Is it an option for the seekers? Give me some thoughts around that. Kerry, you want to go first?
That's a really good question. I believe that we do have SMS with our high volume, so in the plants. My team is really US professional focused, and we don't currently use SMS as a standard practice. So it's primarily email or phone calls, picking up the telephone.
Mhm. What about you, Jeff?
And for us, so we do a lot of international global hiring. So after 3 years of fighting for it, we are finally implementing WhatsApp globally for our organization. So we will be able to message with candidates through the WhatsApp platform. Obviously not US Canada related, because most people in Canada, the US do not use WhatsApp, but a large amount of our candidate base uses WhatsApp globally. So we're trying to take those talent conversations and turn them into WhatsApp conversations by, if a recruiter reaches out or they apply, we automatically send them an initial sort of, hey, are you open to being spoken to or using WhatsApp to have a conversation with us? And we're hoping, we don't have data yet, but we're hoping that that really kind of personalizes the experience.
Jeff, are you
That's
doing
what
that natively through WhatsApp, or are you using a
No,
platform?
we're going through Phenom People, and they have an integration with WhatsApp and Twilio.
Super.
I want to add when I was at CVS, we used Paradox, and in some of our high volume um, campaigns, especially during COVID, we moved people along through the SMS part of Paradox. And so we had a whole process of, if someone passed, like let's just say for farm tax, if they passed the assessment, they would get the you're moving to the next step, expect an email from us. And then if they didn't complete it, we had the different decision trees of how we communicated. And it worked really well. It allowed us to reduce our time to fill. I don't recall the actual data, but we went from like 22 days down to 2 or 3. Um, the VP of talent acquisition, Jeff Lackey over there, he really pushed and had us really thinking about the internal processes of moving people through.
Jeff is out at the front edge of the tip of the spear, right?
He was always fun to work with. He will push you, and you're gonna come out of it with some really fun projects to work on.
The thank you for applying email. I assume you both of you have that.
Yep.
What does yours say? Do you guys want to describe that for us if you could?
So when I first joined Organon, it was very generic. It just basically said, thanks for applying. If we like your resume, someone will be in touch with you within 24 to 48 hours. So at least it gave a little bit of timing, right? I tried to really change that to being more sort of focused on, thank you for taking the time to consider us. We know your time is valuable, and so we will do our best to respect it. So we kind of tried to change it a little bit more into like a candidate's bill of rights almost type of approach, as
Yeah,
opposed to
explain it.
being
Yeah.
that kind of generic, thank you for applying. We'll get back to you if we like you, which is very off-putting.
So you put more of what to expect in that email for them.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And I have the benefit of being an applicant not too long ago. So I recall I was impressed. That's part of when you're applying for jobs and if you get kind of rubbed the wrong way in some of these automated messages, you might think twice if you're going to accept an interview or an offer. But I was pleasantly surprised with the messaging.
Do
We're
you,
in
are there,
that audit phase right now, so it will improve, but
yeah, yeah.
it was good.
What was the least impressive experience that you had, Carrie? Obviously not from Ford, but like just describe like what shocked you, if anything,
Yeah.
did anything shock you, and if so, what, in your experiences kind of applying to various places?
So the Ford was kind of a one-off. I was at EY before that, and I also had a great experience at EY. But it's interesting. When you asked that, what immediately came to mind was several years ago. It was after I left CVS, and I applied for a role, and I was a customer of the role. It was a small beauty company, and I had such a horrible experience that I canceled my membership immediately and have bad reactions every time I hear of that product. And I was a fan. I mean, that was one of the reasons why I applied. So.
At least you're no longer shaming them publicly by calling them out by name. So,
Right, right. I don't
wow.
want to divulge my beauty secrets here.
No, fair enough.
Jeff, got any cringeworthy stories?
It's been a long time since I've ever applied for a job, to be honest. So nothing really stands out. I mean, I've had bad interview experiences. I can probably tell you about 1,000 of those, but from a communication standpoint, the sad thing is that I kind of expect the minimum to be par for the course. And so I don't think I hold companies to a very high standard because I just kind of expect them to not be good at it.
Yeah, totally. For Carrie, for the high volume stuff at your plants, what are some of the ways you keep those candidates engaged during any kind of quiet period between interview stages or yeah.
Interesting question. I don't have a lot of interaction with the plants. I have gone to visit some of the plants. I went to the Kentucky truck plant and just amazing to see the trucks rolling off the line. And I sat down with there were some HR people and some veteran hires and some leaders. They have such a community presence that a lot of it is referrals in person. So, you know, as far as like getting them in and keeping them warm, I mean, I don't know, I guess is the best answer, but we also, um, because there are so many employer referrals, it's hands-on and high touch.
Jeff, what do you guys do for the stages of the process? Do you have an email for every stage that goes out? Give me some more sense around that.
No, so we don't have emails for every stage of the process. We also do high volume hiring. We have 6 manufacturing locations worldwide, and we're trying to. I mean, we've been very diligent about moving the time to connect with a candidate down to under 24 hours because we understand that you usually have less than 24 hours before a candidate will move on in a high volume role. And we're trying some Anon, who's on my team, and I think he's on the call. We hired him specifically in one of our key manufacturing areas to do more kind of offline disruptive communications with candidates. So he's been doing things like working with us to flyer neighborhoods, to put actually, physical paper in somebody's hand, which has been working out really well because
That's
everybody's
interesting.
used to somebody connecting with them on LinkedIn or Indeed or social. And when they get a flyer in their hand, they're like, oh, what is this? So
So just
sometimes
like
going back to the
on
old
the street
stuff
corner,
is,
just passing
is
out, hey, we're hiring.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty guerrilla. I love that.
Flyers, I mean, I always say, because everyone still likes the flyers, so it's still something that we provide.
You guys too, huh? Excellent.
Hmm.
All right. Let's talk about the rejection email, guys. Something that I've long hated as a job seeker, and most companies could give a, 2 cents about it. Do you know what your rejection email says, number one? And have you changed it? What's the philosophy there?
So our rejection emails only get triggered if you have not been spoken to. So if you have not been spoken to, that is the only time you'll get a sort of standard rejection email from us, and it will say that unfortunately, we weren't able to consider your resume at this time, but we again really appreciate the time you took to apply for the job. We highly encourage you to join our talent community, learn more about Organon. So it's trying to as opposed to saying shutting somebody a candidate down and saying sorry you're no good so we don't want you to talk to us, we're really trying to say look, this just might not have been the right job for you, so please do stay in touch because we value your time and your experience. But if you have been spoken to, then you will get a call back from a recruiter and you will be, you'll have the conversation. And we try and encourage our recruiters to give really good constructive feedback to the candidate and give them real world examples of where they can improve to maybe do better at the job next time.
Geoff, there's a new law coming into effect in Canada about communicating with candidates, correct?
I think so, yes. Yeah.
Have you guys looked into this? I mean, I don't think it goes into enforcement until maybe end of year or early next year, right? Is
Oh,
it
there are so many laws that we're looking into right now. There's EU laws, there's Canadian laws, there's so many of them. Our heads are kind of spinning right now with all the employment laws that are being passed. But yeah, we'll definitely. I think we already for the Canadian law, I believe we already comply. Um, but
right?
for any other law like pay transparency and stuff, we're working on that right now.
Is it a
The
rejection law, Alex?
It is every candidate that applies, I believe it's in Ontario, is required to receive a final notice about what the status is and why, like some form of justification for why they weren't selected,
Interesting.
which takes explainability to a whole nother level.
Mhm.
Uh,
I would add the same thing is that it's our emails are similar. We try and provide as much information about stay in touch and that maybe not right now, but in the future. But I do have another real world experience. So there was a role that I applied to and I withdrew from the process. And then I got a disposition email saying you're not selected, which I thought was interesting.
You're like, no
And
kidding.
I wanted to like say, no, no, I withdrew. Let's get that on the record in case I decide to apply
I
again.
rejected you.
Right. I
Exactly.
broke up with you first.
That's where my brain's
Exactly.
going.
It's me,
Exactly.
not you.
Hmm.
That's funny. I had a client once who they ran an eye care firm, eye care centers across the Midwest, and I had them they put in a coupon code in their rejection email
Hmm.
to save like $50 on a pair of glasses. So every rejected candidate got them, and they sent out a lot, thousands per month. So it did help drive store traffic as well. And I think most companies, if they're consumer facing like that, that's a chance there. That's a win. That's an easy win. That gives something back to the candidate, right? That's what I think most companies miss about the rejection email. They fail to just it's a poor tone, usually written poorly. That's a poor tone in there. But if there's a way you can give back something to the seeker for their time for applying, do that. And
Hmm.
it could be something as little as, hey, here's another resource for you to go and find other jobs in pharma or whatever, whatever niche they're in or something like that. So think
We
about
did
that
that.
rejection email.
We did that at CVS. We talked about doing the coupon because basically, if you have a $5 coupon, that basket kind of turns into $20,
Yeah.
which is a little questionable, right? But then at CVS, we also had a tool called it's into currently. It's called Candidate Care, and it used to be part of Career Arc, and then it's now part of Into. But every person who does not get the job, they have a link to join the candidate care for CVS. And it doesn't just provide, so it provides like interview tools and, um, lessons that you can go through to help update your resumes, all those kind of things. And then it also has its own job board and initially we were, okay, let's keep it at CBS jobs only. And then when, of course, we looked at the data and how many applicants we actually get and how many applicants we actually hire, we were like, well, what is the harm of opening it up to all jobs that are out there that come through that job board? And it's still in play and they still use it. And it was just one of our ways of kind of softening the rejection or the disposition out of a position.
Yeah, that's the key there. Soften the rejection,
Mhm.
it certainly it doesn't cost you much to do something like that. I think I wish more companies would pay attention to that stuff.
Mhm.
I was once rejected by Amazon. I did not get an Amazon card. I was also rejected by Starbucks. I did not get coffee. So um,
Did you
bad
change your
on those
buying
guys.
behavior from either one of them?
Well, no, I really like Starbucks, but I don't do as much maybe business with Amazon as I did before.
David Marr in the chat says companies need to remember that applicants are also your customers, so a
Mhm.
positive candidate experience is essential.
I
Kudos. Yeah.
think that the situation you were describing earlier, Carrie, where you apply to a job, this makeup company, it was a makeup company, right?
Beauty company.
Beauty company, sorry. Um, I'm not very good with maintaining the proper terminology. Um, but with this beauty company, the index of applicants to being existing customers with anything that has a consumer brand is like, it's like 5, 6 times more likely that they're a customer than not. Because that is an affinity you're drawn to, right? You're like, you love the product, and so you think maybe I'll go there. I just don't think companies realize the risk that they put on themselves with not taking care of these communications. It's kind of remarkable to me.
And that was not just the communications, but it was also the process. I think I went through maybe 3 or 4 different interviews. I met with the CEO, and it was just overall the accumulation of each stage that I was in, and I was just like, no more. And I canceled that membership immediately.
Wow.
Subscription.
Yeah,
Wow.
I remember when I was with Microsoft, I think the first thing they drilled into our heads on our first day was that every candidate you speak to is also a customer and likely is connected to another 100 customers.
Mhm.
And so you must treat them with respect. You must always get back to them. There is no ifs, buts, nor ands. If you do not give good feedback, your time with us as a recruiter will be done.
I mean, it's funny. I don't think these are the types of stories that are told very often, but there's a reason Microsoft has ascended into the level that they are. There's a reason CVS is on every corner and is, making all the Walgreens shut down. Like it's because of things like that, like putting those types of things like candidate care and that type of expectation setting on day one. Those are the things that make the difference in building a gigantic organization that has real kind of capacity to grow and scale. Super interesting.
I'm a CVS card holder. I get that. I get emails every week. They send me coupons, so I use those coupons. But they should put like a hiring message in there too. I was just thinking about that.
We have done, or we did, especially during COVID, and we had them on those big long receipts as well.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Mhm.
And
The
just
And
receipts
then,
is
of
a
course, you
great
come
place.
into the store and there's the radio. They have their own like CVS radio, and we did some that was a lot of fun to be able to
Oh,
get.
is that still the case? They still have their own radio station?
Well, it's I don't know if it's a radio station. It's sort of like a playlist or something like that, and you can incorporate that message in. I don't know if they still do that. I would imagine yes.
Hmm.
Um, I just saw Nicole Fritz, who's the leader over there, last week, and I should have. I was already asking her a bunch of questions, like, what are they?
Do they also have like a hiring kiosk in stores? You know?
I don't. We had little times of the year that we would have sort of a kiosk. It was
Yeah.
actually a recruiter in store. We talked about it. We talked
Yeah.
about doing it, and I think that was in my interview presentation. I had to present on what I would do, and I think I put that in there. I feel like we did that at Amtrak too, or we were looking at it at Amtrak.
Yeah, our local Stop and Shop has one, I think. And
Mm.
I know there's also
I
that
love
story
how
that
I love how the pendulum swings, right? 35 years ago, everything is offline, and then it's like everything needs to go online and be digital. And now, we're like celebrating the distribution of flyers on a corner.
Well,
yes,
and it's
because the old has become new.
the
Yeah, 100%.
reintroduction of QR codes. So QR codes before
Mm.
COVID, it was kind of like, oh, they're so 2008 and going out. And then COVID
COVID saved
happened.
QR codes. Yeah.
Yeah, and now COVID happened, and now QR codes are part of everything. I will say though, I do have people who ask if we can put a QR code on a billboard, And the answer is immediately no.
No, that
Well,
would be a
it'll
hard
drive more
pass.
sales of Ford cars because they'll have more cars running into each other.
The funny thing about QR codes is, and I'll give this piece of advice to any talent brander that I meet, please don't put it on your online ad. I don't know how somebody's going to scan a QR code with the phone that they're looking at the ad on.
Or on LinkedIn,
So
right? Yeah.
yeah, we've seen those. I've seen those pop up all over the place. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Go buy another phone so I can scan the QR code that's already on my phone?
It reminds me
Screenshots save
of
me so
QR
much.
codes on there's the little baby tomatoes, that that eat the grape tomatoes or whatever. On the
Mhm.
inside, if you flip it up, it says something like join our team, and it's a little QR code that leads to the career site, which I think is brilliant.
No
Awesome.
wasted space.
Hmm.
Interruption marketing. I love it.
Hmm.
All right. Are you guys leveraging AI at all in any of these messages? Is it all handwritten at this point? What are your thoughts on that? And also, if we're going to a place where AI is doing the interviews and sort of rejecting candidates as well, what are your thoughts on that?
We are not doing AI interviewing, and we are not doing any kind of AI, maybe some AI assisted writing for the messages. Um, One thing that came out of the Candidate Experience Awards, the Candies, was that we needed to make sure that we were very transparent on how we were using. I don't know, it came up multiple times. So we are incorporating that message into our communications of explaining how we use it.
Likewise, we're not using generative AI for any kind of messaging to candidates. We use it more often for SEO optimization and removing gender bias from job descriptions and job advertisements, and optimizing those, optimizing job titles based on kind of Google Trends, because the AI is a lot better at scanning those than we are as humans quickly.
So
But
you will ask AI to kind of write your job title
we will
before.
ask it to recommend job titles. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
based on the location, language, because I don't speak Mandarin, right? So sometimes I need some help there.
Gotcha.
And then, but for AI interview, I do not believe in AI interviewing people. I think that's one of the things that is intrinsically something that a human should do. An AI cannot reach out to me and say, "Hey Jeff, like what's bugging you about your day today and what's happening in your job right now that would make you want to change and come over here," and then map that to an intrinsic motivator and then map that to what the company is doing. That's just not, I mean, ChatGPT can't even tell me how to furnish my new apartment because it keeps on making up walls. So I really don't think it's qualified to interview people.
At
Interesting.
They
TA Week last week, it was all about generative engine optimization.
Optimization. Yeah. Yep. Do you guys, yeah, so your career sites, how much information are you putting on there as far as, hey, here's our process, here's what to expect? Are you specifically creating more content now around that online?
Mhm. Yes, what the candidate can experience, what they will experience, and then also how we're answering any kind of Glassdoor or Indeed um, feedback and reviews. We're also going through a career site refresh, so that's happening all in Q1. So busy, busy
Yeah.
Q1.
We luckily just did our career site review and refresh. So we did put we do have some information on there about what the candidate can expect. We reinforced that again through the interview process, so that our we call them talent attraction business partners, our recruiters, are always reinforcing the process to candidates, let them know what they can expect next. But we do have some of that on there. What was interesting is we actually had a lot of information on our career site, and then we started to look at some of the stats and the two top pages, and pretty much all of our traffic goes to the home page and search results. And so, we were building these landing pages that were telling these great stories, only to find out that nobody was actually going there. So now we're trying to figure out, is there a way that we can take that information and really put it at the job page level, right? So when somebody hits the job page, they're there, they're captured, and then they can read the information.
I have a
Not
question
from
on
mine.
that. Do you think about building like sequences in your messaging? So Chris was asking earlier about like mid-funnel messaging. So what you just described about this content is something that I think a lot of people think this is top of funnel, early stage pre-application content, but really it seems like it's much more often mid-funnel, like, okay, I've got an interview, I need to actually really understand the company. Do you think about kind of building that multi-step messaging sequence with that in mind?
Yes, but haven't done it yet.
Okay.
So it's on the radar.
And also, yes, and so along the touch points where we can send them on to the career site. But what you said, Jeff, about the most trafficked pages, the page, this is also at CVS, but the page where people go to check the status of their application and or log into their account, we found that that was one of the top pages. And so we turned that into a multi-purpose. So not only come and check the status, but here are some hot jobs that we are hiring for. So it was kind of our employer brand recruitment marketing offering is putting some information there.
Good tip there. Have either of you gone on to Gemini or ChatGPT and said, "Hey, what's it like to work at Ford or Organon?" and see
I
what it
did that as
says?
part of my interview.
Oh,
No.
okay. What what
And
did
then
was anything
and then I
wrong, Kerry?
presented.
Was it
I pre
hallucinating at all, or was it correct?
It was good. So I presented, I had to do a presentation at Ford also, and I presented the comparison for some of what I thought were our competitors, and most of them are competitors. And then I just highlighted the areas of opportunity from an employer brand perspective. But it gave me a lot of inside information, or at least what I thought to be inside information, to go into my interview and be a little bit more prepared. But that also leads me to, so if I was using it as a candidate, then other candidates are using it. So how are we making sure that the information that's being served up, which is the geo, right? The geo concept, how are we shaping that message versus letting it be shaped by reviews or whatever that might be out there?
Yep. Got some audience questions here. Let's see. And by the way, if you're in the chat there, if you want to ask Jeff or Kerry a question, throw it in there. We'll ask it. How do you decide when a candidate needs a high context message versus a short message?
So I wonder what the difference is.
Hmm.
So I think that you can have a high context message and still have it be a short message. And I think you can have a lot of written word, but have it had no context, right? So I think that everything should be in some way, shape, or form high context, right? It should always, again, I'm very big on respect for people's time, right? So I think that, these candidates, they have applied to jobs that's taken some time. They've had an interview with you that's taken some time out of their lives, and they deserve to be treated with the utmost respect because they've expressed an interest with your company. And so every message that you should give them should be at some point some level of high context.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Here's another one. What are your messaging best practices or tips regarding hyper personalization? When's the best time to send? Length, channel. Any thoughts around that?
I'm a big fan of more concise, fewer words. And then I've also seen the hyper personalization go wrong.
How so?
If it's automated, well, I guess if it's
Mm.
automated and it's intended to look like it's hyper personalized, I've seen it go wrong where it's like, dear, if I put my name, if I misspelled my own name in the database, and then it's kind of like one of those clear
Ah.
indicators that it's an automated message. So sometimes I will, if I'm joining some talent communities, I will spell my name incorrectly so that I can kind of see how other companies are doing it. And that's, I mean, the number of talent communities that I'm a member of, and I love seeing the ones that do it right. And no shame in copying what people are doing that are doing it really well.
Yeah. You made a great point there about it being easily spotted, right, by a candidate. They can tell it's an automated message. And that's where words matter, I think. Like if you just take the time to just craft that message, and you can do it now with AI, it's easy. Change that, make it sound more human,
Also, it's we had the paradox on, and a couple of things like people would ask us questions, and not just at CVS, at other companies too. People would ask us questions that we didn't, the chat wasn't informed on, and so it would give these benign answers. And so, like message two, I incorporated it, even though the company didn't want us to incorporate it. I incorporated, I'm just a chat. I'm not going to ever be able to answer that, but I'll make sure that a recruiter gets this. And if it's something that they can address, then somebody will reach out. You know, you have to be careful about what making the promises too.
Yeah.
We did the
That's a
exact same
thousand times
thing.
better than making up an answer, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We did the same thing. We created our bot is trained to say if somebody says, if it can't get an answer, or somebody actually says to it, "Are you a bot?" which happens a lot, surprising amount. Then it's a funny little kind of, well, I'm an algorithm of code, and and my makers, and it's a funny little sort of rant on, yes, I'm a bot, but I can put you in touch with a human that can help you.
I got a message like that at Sodexo going way back when on Twitter, and it said, "Are you a bot?" or something like that. And I was like, "I in fact am not," because I was Sodexo Careers handle. I was like, "In fact, I am not a bot. I'm eating my breakfast right now," and I sent a picture of my cereal or something like that. But yeah, I mean, like to your point, Jeff, it's surprising how many times people are trying to call you out as a bot, even if it's not. So it's nice to be able to put that human touch. We also had at one of previous companies, the somebody put in, or we were trying to break it, and so we put in, "What's your phone number?" And I think I might have put it in 8675309, and they came back and said, "Haha, that's Jesse's number," or whatever it is. And I thought that was brilliant. And I hadn't put that into the responses. So it was something that the company was paradox. It was
It
something
was
that the
Jenny
company,
Jenny.
yeah, it was just hilarious. I use that example often about the personalization.
Nice.
ZipRecruiter has a bot named Phil, and
Mhm.
they regularly get people that show up at the front door looking for Phil.
Oh, that's funny.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Maybe crossing a little bit of a line of too real, too human, too personalized, and not transparent enough, but
Can I speak to
yeah.
Phil? He rejected me.
You'd be
I would like
surprised at some
to.
of the questions and advances that these chatbots get.
Yeah, that's one of my next questions, Carrie, do you guys offer like a way for candidates to contact you back? Do you have an email address, a phone number, and if so, what are they telling you?
We
Email,
do.
yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say email, yes, phone number, no. Um, currently.
Do you have like one person monitoring that? And what kind of questions do you get through that email?
I hate to bring up CVS so many times, but at CVS we did have, I was one of many who monitored those, and it was just part of we had some automated messages that would go out that would say, okay, we would constantly change our FAQ based on the questions that we were getting so that the FAQ could help to answer the questions that we get over and over again. Um, and then if so, the automated message would go out, looks like your question is part of our FAQ. Take a look here. If you still need our help, send us another email.
Nice.
Same. So we have an email that people can get in touch with us, but we've also started to, so we have a very small 3-person scouting team, and we've started to add so I've talked about this individualized job pages. We've started to add their WhatsApp numbers to the job pages, so that it's kind of like, hey, if you're interested in this job, and because we're with Workday, we have a very complex apply process that doesn't really work very well for blue collar workers.
Hmm.
So we wanted to give them kind of a touch point so they could WhatsApp a member of my team and say, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Like, I tried to press apply and it sent me to this other site that's in English. I only speak Dutch. Help me figure this out.
Interesting. Okay. Any other as we wrap up here, it's 1:52. We can start to close things out. But what are your takeaways, guys, Jeff and Carrie, for messaging candidates right now? What's on your mind? What's top of mind? What's keeping you up at night around that?
I think for me, it's, you have to meet people where they are, right? And so sometimes trying to figure out where exactly they are, especially in a global landscape, it's challenging, right? So when you're dealing with a largely North American market, you can kind of structure your messaging campaigns around maybe one or two platforms, one or two speaking styles. But when you're global, if you're in APKJC, for instance, or China, you have to deal with the reality of WeChat. Before I started this job, I knew nothing about WeChat. I had zero experience with it. And then I very quickly got up to speed on how WeChat works and how prevalent it is in China society and how few vendors actually support WeChat integrations. So it was tricky.
I would say my takeaway is these types of forums is to consult and see what other people are doing in this space. Try and stand out as much as possible, but really consider the actual touch point of what you're trying to communicate. Um, Learn from others. I've always taken that from these kind of conversations. I have notes from just this conversation alone.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the whole point is like you can really differentiate yourself as an employer out there if you just pay attention to what the words you say matter to candidates, and I think it goes a long way, you know.
Mhm.
So, all right, guys, Alex, Carrie, Jeff, Blair, the rest of the crew, thanks for joining us today. I think we'll end it there and end it on a good note. I think it was a great show. We'll do a wrap up video on YouTube for you. We'll do a wrap up blog post as well, so stay tuned for that. And again, I want to thank Carrie and Jeff for joining us today. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, jobsync.com. Check us out.